You will hear a number of different recordings and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You will hear 2 friends, Mark and Susanna, discussing some of the photographs they took during their vacation. First, you will have some time to look at questions 1 to 4. You see, there is an example which has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Mark, look at this photo. It's near a cliff, but I don't remember where we took it.
Well, it still looks cold. I think we'd been for a drive to a little town called Kinsale, near Cork. It is near a cliff. So in the example, B is the answer. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen because you will not listen to the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Mark, look at this photo. It's near a cliff, but I don't remember where we took it.
Well, it still looks cold. I think we've been for a drive to a little town called Kinsale, near Cork.
So could it be just the cliff of Kinsale?
Yeah, just beyond Kinsale. Oh, I remember. There was a golf club at the top of the cliff that we weren't allowed into. So we parked the car and we just walked over so we could take a picture of the view. So there are 3 beautiful ladies.
Right.
Looking over the wild Irish Sea.
It's kind of dangerous and, well, because there's nothing, no fence, nothing, so we have to be careful.
That is a good one too.
Sorry, then when we took it on the 13th of August...
Oh yes, you can see the date again.
Yeah, which is just the day before Ricky's birthday.
Oh yes, we left on the morning of Ricky's birthday, so we couldn't celebrate it with you. What a shame.
So that is actually the day before you left?
That's right. Yes, so this was our last day together.
Right.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 5 to 10. So this picture must have been later on then. What are you doing? What's that guy doing with his arms around you? He's not your husband, Susanna.
What do you think we're doing? We're not dancing or anything. No, I was about to kiss the Blarney Stone.
Oh, I thought you were going to say kiss him for a moment.
No. Well, do you see all the legs there? People are waiting.
Everyone else in the queue, I remember.
You know this. Well, Blarney Castle is famous for its stone, which says, once you kiss it, it will give you the gift of eloquence. You're supposed to be able to speak, well, tell good stories and...
Well, that's what you're doing right now, isn't it? It must have worked for you.
I don't know, but it's kind of tricky because there's a big gap between the wall and, the place, well, the tower or the castle. So you have to be helped. You can't really do it yourself.
So that's why the guy's holding on to you there. And you got the poles at the back to support you.
So you have to hold on to the poles and then you have to... Well, I didn't take the picture. Some people took it when they're really kissing the stone and it's...
That sort of photograph, you'd have to take it from underneath.
So you have to really lie down flat on the ground and then kiss it.
So was it worth the wait? Because you were queuing for nearly an hour for that.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to kiss it. 6 people went up, but only 3 of us kissed the stone. It was me, Sue and May, and Liza, Joe and Ricky decided not to because...
So the guys didn't want to kiss the stone?
And Liza didn't.
And Liza as well?
Liza didn't kiss the stone either, and she said, "Ooh, it looks a bit unhygienic."
Well, that's what I would think. I mean, how many thousands of people have kissed that stone before?
That's true, but if you remember what Mary said, our hostess of the B&B, and she said, it's in the open air and it's so cold, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, germs wouldn't last very long on that piece of stone.
Shouldn't do. Yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. Besides, you queue up for so long, and if you don't do it...
It would be a shame.
Yeah, it's really a shame, and...
Oh, that's great. That's a really good photo. You could even have that one enlarged. Put it on your wall.
That's a good idea. To remind myself that I've kissed the stone.
And to remind you where you got your gift of eloquence. Now, this last one. That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to Section 2. Section 2. You're going to hear a lecture on some useful information for your travelling around Britain. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15. Good afternoon and welcome to the session on Britain. This afternoon I would like to provide some useful information for you about travelling around Britain. Britain has over 700 tourist information centres. You will find them at major ports, airports, stations, historic landmarks and towns and holiday centres. So just look out for this sign that says Tourist Information. Staff will be able to answer your holiday queries as well as provide essential maps, guides and brochures. Tourist information centres at major ports and airports in London and addresses of British Tourist Authority European offices are all listed on the Tourist Information Centres. Now let's talk about the telephone in Britain. You know, Britain is well supplied with public telephones. Street kiosks take 10p coins. In city centres, main line railway stations, airports and central London Underground stations, payphones and card phones are in operation. For the latter, small plastic phone cards are used, and these come in 10, 20, 40, 100 and 200 units and can be bought at post offices, news kiosks, station bars and shops where the green and white card phone sign is displayed. When using the different public telephone systems, make sure you read the dialling instructions carefully. Before you hear the rest of the introduction, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen carefully and answer questions 16 to 20. Now let's see the banks in Britain. There are 24-hour banks at London's two main airports. One is Heathrow and the other is Gatwick. Otherwise, banks are normally open from 9:30 to 15:30 hours Monday to Friday. Barclays Bank and National Westminster Bank offer a Saturday morning service at some of their branches. National Gyro Banks has 42 bureaux de change located in post offices throughout the country in main tourist areas. Opening hours are 9 to 17:30 on weekdays, 9 to 12:30 on Saturday mornings. One exception to this is the Trafalgar Square office, whose opening hours are 8 to 2000 hours on weekdays and Saturdays, and 10 to 1700 hours on Sundays. The bureau de change services are available to overseas visitors. Visitors can change their money there. You can also change money at large hotels, department stores and travel agents. Be sure to check in advance the rate of exchange and the commission charged, as these vary considerably. Wherever possible, you're advised to use a bank or bureau de change which conforms to the BTA Code of Conduct. In most cases, this is indicated by display of the code. That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3. Section 3. You will hear a conversation between Zoe and her academic advisor. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 28. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 28. How are you getting on, Zoe? Feeling at home yet?
Well, more or less. There are still some things I need to buy, and I haven't found my way to all the facilities yet, but I really love the campus, and I've already made a few friends.
Fantastic. Now let's see what we can do to get your studies off to the right start too. You're on the foundation course, so you can take up to 8 modules. What we advise is that you take 4 modules in the first semester, and assuming everything goes well, 4 in the second. Have you decided which you want to take this semester?
I haven't made up my mind yet. I can't decide whether to take Principles of Marketing or Introduction to International Trade.
Well, that depends on your career goal. You're planning to work in the biotechnology sector, aren't you?
Well, that's my present thinking, but I guess I might change my mind.
Right. Marketing is a broad, general subject that you will find really useful in a number of careers. International trade, on the other hand, is more specific. That's fine if you're sure it's the sort of work you want to do. A lot of students start off thinking about that option because it seems glamorous. But marketing can also be an exciting career, and there's a wide choice of jobs. Maybe you ought to wait until your career ideas are a bit more definite before you go down that road.
Yes, I see. I could take international trade next year, couldn't I?
Sure, you can do international finance as well. So, in your first semester, you've got Principles of Marketing, Introduction to Economics, Banking and Finance, and let's see, Principles of Financial Accounting. How do you feel about that as a package?
It's okay, I think, but I'm a bit worried about the maths. There'll be some statistics to do, won't there?
Basic statistics, yes, but nothing more difficult than your last year of school maths.
I know, but our maths syllabus was a bit old-fashioned. Mostly algebra, geometry, trigonometry and stuff. Hardly any stats.
Right, well, it sounds as if you could do with a maths brush-up course. I can arrange for you to attend just the classes on statistics if you like.
That'd be great. I didn't want to do the whole of maths again, but the stats classes would make me feel much more confident. Thanks.
Hang on a minute. There's one more thing. Your English. Now, you know you have to reach a satisfactory standard in English by the end of your first year to be allowed to go on to the main BSc course.
Yeah, now I'm in an English-speaking environment and have to speak English all the time. I'm sure I'll be all right.
It certainly helps, but speaking isn't everything. You'll have to get your reading up to the standard where you can understand the books on your course reading list quickly to get the information and ideas you need to write your essays. That means you have to develop a higher level of comprehension skills. You'll never get through all the course material if you try to read the books intensively from cover to cover. That's why our Language Skills Development Programme gives you a series of graded academic texts to study and answer questions in a limited time. You'll probably find it quite hard at first having to work against the clock without a dictionary.
How can I improve my skimming and scanning skills?
Good question. For that, you'll have to do a range of specially designed exercises. Sometimes these will be from a transparency, a tranny, because that's quite often how the lecture material is presented. Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you'll have some time to look at questions 29 to 30. Now listen carefully and answer questions 29 and 30.
Sometimes I think I'll never learn all the vocabulary. English is such an enormous language.
I know what you mean. English is the biggest language ever. At least 350,000 words. Even Winston Churchill only knew 60,000, so they say. But as an academic student, you can get a lot of help from the Academic Word List by Averil Coxhead of Victoria University. That's in Wellington, New Zealand.
I've studied word lists, of course, but how does this one help?
The Academic Word List is based on a survey of 3,500,000 words of academic text. It contains 570 families of the words most commonly found in academic texts. Well, that's apart from the 2,000 most useful words in English. They come in a separate list. You can see copies of both in the library.
You said word families. Do you mean words that are similar?
In a way, yes. It means all the different grammatical forms of a word are listed together. So you can see the noun, verb, adjective forms with prefixes and suffixes and so forth. It'll be clearer when you look at it. Anyway, Averil Coxhead gives you really great hints about how to learn the words, so it shouldn't be too daunting.
The trouble is I tend to forget the words I learn.
Well, there are two ways you can tackle that. First, always try to learn the words in a context. Either learn the whole sentence using the word, or learn a phrase that the word typically comes in. We call phrases like that collocations.
That's a new one on me. Collocations. I'd better make a note of it.
You do that. You can find collocations in most modern dictionaries. Anyway, as I was saying, there's a second study aid I recommend for vocabulary learning. When you get an assignment, take a sheet of paper and write 4 headings. Words I can use, words I can recognise but can't use, words I'm not sure of, words I don't know. Don't bother with the simple words, of course. Then go back after 2 weeks and look at these lists again. Can you move any of the words into a better column? That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4. Section 4. You will hear a talk on the history of jazz. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Music comes in many forms. Most countries have a style of their own. Poland has its polkas. Hungary has its czadas. Brazil is famous for the bossa nova, Caribbean countries for the merengue, and Argentina for the tango. The US is known for jazz, a completely original type of music that has gained worldwide popularity. Jazz is America's contribution to popular music. In contrast to classical music, which follows formal European traditions, jazz is spontaneous and free-form. It bubbles with energy, expressing the moods, interests and emotions of the people. Brash, uninhibited, exciting, it has a modern sound. In the 1920s, jazz sounded like America, and so it does today. The origins of this music are as interesting as the music itself. jazz was invented by African Americans, as they are called today, who were brought to the southern states as slaves. Music has always been important in African American life. Coming mainly from West Africa, the blacks who were brought to America already possessed a rich musical tradition. This music centred on religious ceremonies in which dancing, singing, clapping and stamping to the beat of a drum were important forms of musical and rhythmic expression. As these people settled into their new life in the plantations of the South, music retained its importance. In the fields they made up work songs. Singing made the hard work go faster, and as the people were converted to Christianity, they composed lovely spirituals which have become a permanent part of American music. Another musical form which contributed to jazz was the blues. Blues songs always describe something sad, an unhappy love affair, a money problem, or bad luck. To this day, the expression feeling blue means being sad or depressed. In fact, there was hardly any activity or social event that could not be set to music. Weddings, births, christenings, funerals, picnics, parades, all had their musical accompaniment. After the American Civil War, 1861 to 1865, the African Americans had gained their freedom and were ready for a new type of music, one that would preserve their musical traditions but be fast and happy to express their newfound freedom. They wanted something they could play as professional musicians for both black and white audiences. Jazz was the answer. It combined themes from African American work songs, spirituals and blues, set to a fast beat, with the musicians improving as they went along, like the funeral marching bands. To be good, a musician had not only to remember his part, but also to be able to invent new variations on the spur of the moment. Jazz belongs to the people, but popular taste is changeable. Jazz had to keep up to date. Over the last half-century, it has changed many times in form, style and tempo. Each change added something new.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of the test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet.